There's our whistle. We'll get ready for the start. And my favorite part, watching the starter take off the course because these athletes are coming in hot. Let's introduce you to these 36 teams real quick. We've got Host School Bradley, Chicago State, Creighton, DePaul, Drake, Eastern Illinois. Illinois, a really good program, ranked 10th coming in to this meet. Illinois State, a dominant school in the Missouri Valley. Illinois, Chicago, and Iowa are on the start line today. They're joined by Iowa State, who is one of our 2 auto qualifiers from last season. We'll see what they can do. Kansas State, Loyola, who we mentioned won that Atlantic 10 conference. Minnesota, Mizzou, Missouri State, Nebraska, North Dakota and North Dakota State, and then Northern Illinois, Northern Iowa, Northwestern, who we saw run very successful races at the Bradley Pink Classic here on the same course earlier this season. They're joined by Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Omaha, led by Cameron Ensley, someone who might be at the front of the pack here. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Oral Roberts, St. Louis, Southeast Missouri, SIU Edwardsville, and then to round out our 36 teams, South Dakota State, your Missouri Valley champion, Southern Illinois, Tulsa, Western Illinois, and Wichita State.
Yeah, a great field assembled here for the Midwest region meet. As we see the athletes kind of try and position themselves, get ready for this first 2K loop that they'll do. Ryan, obviously the team title, something we'll keep a close eye on. Minnesota, we mentioned they've held steady at number 2 ranked in the region most of the season since 2005. They've not finished outside of the top 5 at the Midwest region. So historically, very good team. They did not qualify last year. As you said, Oklahoma State and Iowa State were the qualifiers from last year. But, I mean, the rankings right now, Oklahoma State, Minnesota, but are 1-2. Right behind them, Northwestern and Iowa State, 2 teams that are going to look to maybe kind of spoil those rankings a little bit.
Absolutely. And from this angle, tough to know exactly who's in the front of that pack, but we see it looks like some Iowa State up there, definitely some Oklahoma State athletes. And then the other thing, not only can you qualify as a team at this meet, top 2 teams going and getting those auto qualifiers, but the top 4 athletes who finish in the top 25 and are not on one of those auto qualifier teams get a chance too. So we've got 4 individual bids to next weekend's NCAA championships as well.
Yeah, so some of the individuals that we'll be kind of looking at here is we'll get a split at 2K, I believe, and we'll be able to kind of sort out who some of these athletes are in this massive pack. But we mentioned South Dakota State coming away with the team championship in the Summit League, but individually Reagan Baszler of NDSU, we saw her run on this course earlier in the season at the Bradley Pink Invite. She kind of ran away literally with the Summit League title, so she'll look to position herself up front. Leah Gerudo of Oklahoma, she was 9th at SECs. She was the African champs bronze in the 3K steeple and 5th at the Kenyan trials in the 3K steeplechase. I believe that's her on the right there, so we'll look for her to have a solid performance towards the front. Mile Porche of Iowa State, another one that kind of depends individually or team how they do, but she'll look to put herself towards the front. She was 9th at Big 12s. She is a 5K All-American in the outdoor 5K and was all-region in cross-country last year.
Yes, so some phenomenal talent there as we're coming around one of our turns here in this early loop. We are going to have a split coming at 2K. They're probably just past that 1K mark, so we'll get those live results, complimentary of Shazam timing. So when we get those, we'll have a better idea who is at the front of this pack.
Yeah, just looks like off to the left there, it looks like that's Rahel Bromell of Mizzou. She was 13th at SECs, 7th at the Chili Pepper earlier this season, which was one of the premier kind of mid-season meets. In 2023, running for Arkansas State, she was 5th at the South region to qualify for NCAA-XC. So she's looking to get herself back to the national championships.
Yes. So a lot of storylines going on today. As we continue on in our race, we're about 4.5 minutes into it. At the 2-kilometer mark, we'll get you some live updates, but we see a lot of colors up there. It looks like Iowa State might be in the mix there. It looks like we also might have Minnesota running really well, and then it looks like we got a Bison on the left in all gold. That's Reagan Baszler, who Cam mentioned might be someone to watch who could be going for one of those individual qualifying spots. As mentioned yesterday, very chilly day, and it was not ideal for these athletes as they're getting their shakeouts in, but it looks like today a complete 180. Cam, you've raced the Midwest region on this course. Tell us a little bit about your own experiences here and what that course is like in these early stages of the race.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, just with a pack of so many people, it is, I think one of the most challenging parts of the first 2K, the first mile of the race, is keeping yourself calm and under control, not getting caught up with the atmosphere and the thoughts of, hey, this is a massive meet. This is the Midwest region cross country meet for NCAA. So early on, it's just how do you keep yourself calm, and then being able to find the rhythm of going down the hills, carrying your momentum there, and going up the hills. For me, it was a difficult course to pass on, because you think, oh, maybe I'll save myself for the downhills to have an overtake going downhill, but everybody's doing the same thing. Yeah. So then it's like, well, do I push hard up the hill? Well, that's challenging. That kind of puts yourself in a dark place when you're going up a hill. So.
Yeah, and there's just so many bodies. You got to remember, each team can run 8 athletes. Seven, excuse me. And with those 36 teams that we introduced to you a little bit ago, that's a lot of people that you got to work around, especially in these early stages when we're all still really packed up. How important is it then to get out right away in these first couple kilometers and put yourself in good position?
Yeah, I mean, especially for those who are thinking about having a shot individually to make it, you got to put yourself in the pack. You got to be able to. Regardless of how the race goes out, be able to use the athletes around you to either pull you along or kind of shut your brain off. So position is huge from a team standing aspect. I would say, not getting too far back, but there is something that you can benefit on from moving up late and picking off people that maybe went out too hard. So team-wise, maybe there's a little bit of an opposite strategy, like, hey, let's not get too far back, but let's position ourselves conservatively so that we have something that we're always chasing, always going for.
Right, and great view there of all these athletes coming across. Like we mentioned, pretty quick here, we'll get some of those 2K splits for you, and we'll give you a better idea of who's sitting in which positions, both individually and team at that point. A lot of really diverse uniforms going across, a lot of colors, just a great representation of this Midwest region. Up front, though, it looks like we do have a lot of Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Minnesota athletes, so it's sure to be a close battle early on in these stages of the race. And they're coming up on one of the few downhills in this course. There's, like you said, a few rolling hills, but nothing too strenuous to go over. But an opportunity for them to use a little bit of momentum coming into this turn.
Yeah, one of the big kind of strategies that many of these athletes, I'm sure, have used, in their cross-country career is, finding opportunities to disrupt the rhythm of other people. And if that can be on the downhill, you're going to use it. If it can be on an uphill, you're going to use it. A lot of times you'll see, as they're going around a turn, can I separate by even a stride or two around this turn, almost giving the illusion that I'm ahead more than I actually am. As much of a physical sport as cross-country is, it is a mental sport as well.
All right, we've got our first splits here from our live results through 2K. Individually, we've got Dorcas Kiptanui of Kansas up front, Rahel Brummel, who Cam introduced to us earlier on, sitting in second for Mizzou, Allie Weimer of Minnesota in third, Leah Gerudo of Oklahoma in fourth, Robin Kowalski of Tulsa in fifth. We'll give you the top 10 here. Nova Ochakangis of Southeast Missouri in sixth, Mile Porsche of Iowa State in seventh, Emma Atkinson of Minnesota sitting in eighth, Allie Bainbridge of Nebraska on her shoulder, and then Allie Hill of Illinois, and let's see, that looks like Berlin Schutz of Nebraska coming through the split mat in 10th together. So those are your top 10 individuals, and as a team we'll have to wait for some of these to come through, but it does look like early on Minnesota is sitting well in first place, far ahead of Northwestern and Iowa State, who are sitting 2-3. Now these live results, they're going to change as we get more and more athletes that come across those maps, but right now it does look like it's pretty solidified. Minnesota, Northwestern, Iowa State 1, 2, 3, with Nebraska 4th right now and Oklahoma 5th. So any surprises as we go through those first early stages of the race, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a lot about Oklahoma State. They come in with the highest national ranking, so a little bit surprised to see them that far back. It's not too uncommon to especially at the early splits, the athletes are so congested, so close together. You could essentially be in first place, but be scoring on the live results 12 points for your team, or something to that effect. So I think team-wise, this 4K split is going to be a much better indicator of where we're at team-wise. But yeah, big surprise for me to see Oklahoma State all the way back in 8th.
And now it looks like, there was a little bit of delay there on the 2K splits, but we got our 3K split already, and it looks like it's still pretty much that same group of athletes up front. Allie Weimer of Minnesota has moved into the lead. Now, Cam, that kind of move, at what point in the race, 6K is a little bit shorter than what we'll see on the men's side. Where do you got to move, and where do you got to try to string this thing out? We still see a big pack up front.
Yeah, I mean, it really all just depends on kind of the strengths of the athlete. If somebody is a little bit more confident, maybe they have more of a 1,500-meter leaning, maybe they're more content to just wait, till only a K to go. I think Allie Weimer is somebody who we watched at GRIAC earlier and kind of make a push from this 3K, around this halfway point in the race, and I think that's what we see her doing here.
Now, Northwestern, a team that we didn't mention a whole lot in our preview, but they ran here earlier this season at the Bradley Pink Classic and ran phenomenally. And you got to remember there were 2 women's races that day, a white and a red, and kind of an open race and an invite. Northwestern won both. Ava Earl had a phenomenal race. She finished 14th at Big Tens, but she and her teammates have some experience on this course, even just as recent as a few weeks ago. How important is that here in some of these later stages of the race?
Yeah, I mean, just having like familiarity with the course, knowing like actually how far am I from the finish, when can I, really go to the well and give it everything, give it my last burst of energy. It does benefit to know the course. A lot of times, when you're out there running, you see the splits, but you get kind of lost, not lost on which direction you're going, but lost mentally, like how much do I have left? And so that's where like a coach or a teammate or a trainer can be a big benefit on the course.
Now, what's interesting here is our top 2 teams right now, Minnesota and Northwestern. Minnesota has Allie Weimer up front, running in the front of the pack there in the maroon top and the gold bottoms. But here's what's interesting. We mentioned those 4 individual spots that are up for grabs. Now, right now, that would be spots 2, 3, 4, and 5 in this race, because right now Northwestern doesn't have anybody in that top 5. Minnesota's next athlete there is Emma Atkinson in 7th. So right now you've got to be right up near the front if you want even to sniff a chance to go to Madison next week and race.
Yeah.
So as it goes through 3K, it's Leah Gerudo, Rahel Brummel, Hallie Hill, and Mile Porcher that have those 4 individual qualifying spots, but that's subject to change here as we continue on in this race.
It will be interesting to see too. Through 3K, we did see Oklahoma State move up into that 3rd position, so those athletes are moving up well, but there are at-large team qualifying spots available, and so if a team like Northwestern were to beat the nationally ranked team of Oklahoma State, would Oklahoma State get one of those autos and push almost Northwestern in? Obviously they would have the auto spot, but
yeah, tough to know there. As we have a couple of Oklahoma State athletes go by, the other thing that's kind of interesting is Oklahoma State's got a pack right now of 3 runners kind of all together, and that's Lagat, Mwara, and Arbach. They've moved up from those mid-20 places. They're sitting now 11th, 12th, and 14th. So good sign from the Cowboys of Oklahoma State there as they move up. But how much time can you leave? You got 2K left. Is that enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think Oklahoma State has run a very mature race so far, very team-centered race. I have to imagine that they're thinking about how they're going to set themselves up best for next weekend, and to see them slowly move up. You see individually they've moved up 14 positions, 12 positions, 10 positions from the last split. So they're rolling. They know exactly what they're doing. And I mean, that's what we would expect is, Yeah, it's very good. Let's give you those top 10 individuals right now. Allie Weimer of Minnesota and Leah Gerudo of Oklahoma out front pacing this thing. They're 1-2. Rahel Brummel of Mizzou is in 3rd. Mile Porcher of Iowa State right on her shoulder, splitting in the exact same time, tied for 3rd. Hallie Hill of Illinois 5th with Ava Earl of Northwestern, who's moved up 5 spots.
Allie Bainbridge of Nebraska moving up a little bit into 7th. Ava Crinity of Northwestern in 8th. Chloe Hirschenau of Tulsa on her outside 13-21, and Nova Uchikangas of Southeast Missouri in 10th. Those updated team standings, Minnesota still out front, holding on strong, but it's Oklahoma State that's closing that gap there in 2nd. Northwestern, your Bradley Pink Classic champions, in 3rd. Iowa State 4th, and Bradley, the host school, moving up into 5th. They're running strong in the back half of this race. So Cam, with just under 2K to go, what can we expect to see? Maybe both individual. Let's start individual side. What can we expect to see from maybe not 1 and 2? They look like they're far out front, but from that 3 through 10 position.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great battle up front between Weimer and Gerudo. It'll be interesting to see who's able to come out on top there. We saw Weimer sort of pushing the pace around that 3K mark. It looks like she went to make her move earlier, Gerudo matching it. So great duel up front between those two. I mean, mentally, between Bromell, Porcher, and Hill, they have to know that the positions that they're in are, potentially the final 3 spots for the individual bid to the national championships. So I would have to assume that they're even thinking, not even thinking about the team, taking athletes out by the team. They have to win that pack.
Right, and so important here in the final stages. If you're just tuning in, you got to remember top 2 teams are going to get auto qualifiers for the national championship meet, and then 4 individuals get bids as well. So very, very valuable spots here in the closing spots of this race.
Yeah, and it's still tight team-wise, Ryan. I mean, Minnesota sitting in first, 87 points. Oklahoma State second, 92, and Northwestern just 6 points behind them, 98. So there's a lot to play for team-wise.
And it'll be interesting. I don't know if Northwestern finishes in 3rd, if they quite have the resume to qualify for the national meet. It's the same conversations we have NCAA basketball every year.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. We got to look at the midseason resume. Northwestern, good wins at Bradley Pink Classic. But, a finish of 7th at the Big Ten Championships, is that enough? Or if you finish 3rd, that the committee would potentially give you an at-large bid? So we are through 5K with just 1K to go. We're in the closing minutes of this race.
Yeah, and here goes Gerudo. She's gone to the front now for the first time. Let's see if Weimer can respond like Gerudo did to Weimer's move earlier.
Yes, it's going to be very, very interesting how this one plays out over the final few minutes. It's Hallie Hill of Illinois who's moved up a few spots into 3rd. Mile Porcher of Iowa State holding steady in that position as well. Josephine Moara moving up another 6 spots for Oklahoma State, huge for the team score. She's followed by Ava Earl of Northwestern, Allie Bainbridge of Nebraska, with a pair of Oklahoma State runners behind them, Victoria Legat and Savannah Auerbach, and Chloe Wellings of Northwestern moving up. So we see a charge here between Northwestern's Wildcats and Oklahoma State's Cowboys. What can they do in the closing moments of this race?
I mean, just going off of what we see on camera right here for Weimer, it could be, she's obviously fighting for the individual title here, but this could have, this could be very important for the team standings as well. That 1 point swing with how tight it's been between Oklahoma State and Northwestern for that final automatic bid. Neither 3 of these teams want to leave it up to chance. Neither want to leave it up to the regular season. They want to get the job done today.
Yes, and Oklahoma State is starting as we see more live results come in. They're changing each moment, but Oklahoma State's opening that gap. But Minnesota and Northwestern, it's just a handful of points, just a few places, and which is why these last final minutes of the race, it's so important. Even if you can pass one person, it could astronomically change the trajectory of your team score. So Oklahoma State 1, Minnesota 2, Northwestern sitting in 3rd, just a couple points separating the Gophers and the Wildcats. Iowa State in 4th. Bradley running really well up in 5th. They were ranked 9th coming in today, but sitting in the top 5, impressive for them.
So Ryan, just from that last timing split, Weimer was given, came across in 1st, so she's given 1 point for the Gophers there. But obviously we see her in 2nd now, so that would, just doing some personal adjustments, that puts Minnesota to 86, Northwestern at 88. So
yeah, we're gonna see. Now
it's gonna be a battle.
Now Gerudo has opened up this thing big time, so it does appear that Leah Gerudo is gonna be running away with your title here. Weimer on her shoulder. This is the final stretch of the race.
It looks like Porcher of Iowa State there.
And while we have a lot of team scores still left to go, Leah Gerudo of Oklahoma is going to be your individual champion, crossing the line in 1942. The Sooner breaking away from the pack from Allie Weimer late in the race, and she is going to go to the Midwest, win your Midwest region, and go to the NCAA championships next week at the University of Wisconsin.
Yeah, a lot of that neon orange there from Oklahoma State. Wouldn't have expected anything less from a program like Oklahoma State. Very mature, very responsible sort of racing from them as a team.
Now we're going to go through the top 10. We have those individuals. We'll keep the camera right here as we see those individuals come across the finish line. We'll go Leah Gerudo, your champion, followed by Allie Weimer of Minnesota in second. Mile Porcher running a great race in third for Iowa State. Josephine Moira, huge second half of this race, will finish fourth for OK State. Allie Bainbridge of Nebraska finishing fifth. Illinois will finish sixth. Hallie Hill for the Illini there. She's sixth. Victoria Legat of Oklahoma State in seventh. Ava Earl of Northwestern eighth. Chloe Wellings, her teammate of Northwestern, ninth. And Savon Auerbach of Oklahoma State finishing 10th. Now, obviously, a little bit of, we still have to see how these team standings play out, but Leah Gerudo has punched her ticket to the Midwest, from the Midwest region to the NCAA championships. We'll have to see Minnesota and Northwestern, how that finishes up. It looks like Mile Porcher will get to go as well, and then Allie Bainbridge for Nebraska looking really good. Now it's just a question of Minnesota, Northwestern going for that second spot behind OK State. How does that play out?
Yeah, great running from the individuals from the Big Ten. Bainbridge of Nebraska, the Sioux Falls Lincoln Prep, 19th at Big Ten, really showed up today, 5th at the region meet. Same with Hallie Hill of Illinois. She was 16th at Big Ten, setting the Illini school record in the 6K. Great run from her for 6, really giving herself an excellent chance at making this national meet.
Yeah, we see kind of some of the carnage there at the end of the race, and we're watching individuals still coming across the finish line here. We had nearly 200 athletes in this field, so a lot still coming across the line and finishing. We are not quite going to say team scores yet for that 2-3 spot. It does look like Oklahoma State has locked up the team win, but still maybe a little too early to call for Minnesota and Northwestern, so we won't say anything there quite yet. But what a great race. Beautiful day. These ladies took advantage of it, and we saw a lot of really fast times on a really great course.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Leah Gerudo does at the national championships. She ran what looked like a very comfortable and commanding race, able to put on 6 seconds on Weimer in just the last half mile. And Allie Weimer, third at Big Ten championships against the 1-2 punch of the Oregon Ducks. So she's a legit national talent there. It'll be interesting to see Gerudo go up against some of the other great runners that we have across the whole nation.
So it does appear that Oklahoma State is going to take your team title, finishing with about 60 points, subject to change a little bit as we have the final few runners come through and swap these live results up a little. Minnesota, as it stands, is going to be your second auto qualifier to the NCAA championships next week in Madison, Wisconsin. The Gophers, ranked second coming into this race, lock up that number 2 spot. Northwestern appears to have finished third. The Wildcats running really, really well in the back half of this race, but not quite enough. We'll just have to wait and see if they could potentially get in that large bid.
Yeah, a bit of a nervy position for Northwestern. They ran well. I think they should be very proud of how they ran today. Great result from them, but yeah, they'll kind of have to play the waiting game.
Now, Iowa State, as it stands, finishes 4th as a program. Great run from them. They were ranked 4th coming in, and Nebraska does 1 spot better than their ranking. They'll finish 5th. So those are your top 5 teams. With that being said, that gives us a little bit clearer picture of how these individual finishes are going to go. Leah Gerudo, your individual champion from Oklahoma, is one of your individual qualifiers. Phenomenal race from her. Just broke away in the second half of this race and ends up gapping second place by about 6 points.
Yeah, so Gerudo will be your champion as well as your first individual qualifier for nationals. Mile Porcher of Iowa State, who finished 3rd. She will be an individual qualifier. Bainbridge of Nebraska will be third, and it looks like Hallie Hill of Illinois will be your fourth and final individual qualifier.
Yes, so, man, a lot on the line, and that means out of the Midwest region for the individuals, it took, under 20 minutes to qualify and punch your ticket. So great running from them, phenomenal racing. So once again, Gerudo, Porsche, Bainbridge, and Hill, your individual qualifiers out of this. And as it stands, Oklahoma State and Minnesota, they're going dancing, as we would say. They're going to head up to Madison, Wisconsin next weekend for the NCAA Division I Cross Country Championships. You never know what kind of weather you're going to get in Madison, but I sure hope it's as beautiful a day as it is today. As our final few runners cross the line, we will go to break here. We will be back in just a little bit. We'll run down your team finishes and your individual finishes. Thank you for tuning in so far. This is just the beginning of what's sure to be a great rest of your day. We'll be back in just a short break.